I will never forget the day Babatunde held a tiny baby cardigan to his chest and cried like a child in front of the whole motor park. The sun was high, the engines were loud, but his cry cut through everything. People stopped buying bread, stopped loading passengers, stopped gossiping. Even the Agberus that always shout kept quiet. I was standing beside my taxi when he fell on his knees and tears dropped on the dusty ground. Nobody could believe it because this same man had never even smiled since I knew him. That moment stayed inside my head like a bell ringing without stopping. And that is where this story begins. Before that day, Babatunde was the man everybody feared. He was tall, dark, strong, and always angry for reasons nobody knew. I used to say he carried storm inside his body. If you greet him, he would look at you like you brought trouble. If you joke with him, he would hiss and walk away. Passengers only entered his car when they were in a hurry and had no other choice. Even children used to pull their mother's clothes and whisper that they did not want to enter the angry man's car. Every morning at Oregu Motor Park, I sat inside my taxi and watched him. That was my habit. Some drivers drink tea, some read newspaper before work. Me, I used to study people. And every day, Babatunde came at the same time, cleaned his car like he was washing a wound, entered it and drove out without greeting anybody. Something about the way he lived made me feel he was carrying heavy pain, but nobody could ask him. On the Wednesday, everything changed. The day started normally. I was loading passengers going to Ikeja when I saw a young woman enter his taxi. She looked tired, like someone carrying the weight of a whole year. She held a small nylon bag like it was important to her. She did not talk much. She just entered, paid, and they drove off. I did not know that small moment would turn the whole park upside down. I did not know that small nylon bag would enter Babatunde's life and touch the wound he had been hiding from all of us. When he came back later that day, he was not the same man. He parked his taxi slowly. He bent forward inside the car. At first, I thought his engine had spoiled. Then I saw his shoulders shaking. I rushed there with 2 other drivers. When he looked up, his eyes were red and full of water. And in his hand was the tiny baby cardigan that would open his secret and change everything. That was the moment we all knew something deep was about to happen.
When we gathered around his car that afternoon, nobody wanted to speak first. The whole park was quiet, like someone pressed pause on all of us. Babatunde held the small cardigan so tight that his knuckles turned white. The cloth was soft and light, the kind you buy for a newborn baby. Seeing that cardigan in his rough, shaking hands did something to all our hearts. I knelt beside him and asked him what happened. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The man who used to shout at everybody now could not even form one word. He just kept looking at the cardigan like it was something that came to break him open. After a while, he breathed in, long and slow, and pointed at the back seat of his taxi. I looked inside and saw a small folded envelope lying there. It was old, like it had been opened and closed many times. Babatunde picked it up with a shaking hand and gave it to me. I opened it gently. Inside was a paper with words written by someone that cried while writing. The paper told the story of a woman who lost her newborn baby. The pregnancy was fine. The baby was expected with joy, but something went wrong during delivery. The baby came too early and did not survive. Since that day, the woman carried only 2 things with her everywhere she went. The first was this cardigan, the only cloth she had bought for the child. The second was the hospital scanned photo. The letter ended with words that held my chest tightly. It said that if the cardigan ever left her hand, she did not know how she would survive the pain. I looked up at Babatunde. His tears were falling again. It was then I understood that this was not just sadness for someone else. Something inside the story had touched a part of him he had been hiding for years. The cardigan was not just a lost item. It was a mirror, showing him his own pain. The other drivers stood around us. Some of them that never cared about anything stood with their mouths open. A few women selling pure water nearby wiped their eyes quietly. Nobody expected this from the man we called the landlord of bad mood. He tried to talk, and his voice broke like old wood snapping. He said the woman who forgot the cardigan must be looking for it now. He said we needed to find her. He said she could break down if she discovered it was gone. And the way he talked, like he was holding fire inside his chest, made all of us feel the matter was bigger than we first thought. Before we could ask him how to start looking, he dropped the cardigan on the passenger seat, jumped into the driver's side, turned on the engine, and sped off like someone chasing his own shadow. We all ran back a little because none of us had ever seen him drive with such fear and urgency. That was when I knew this was not about helping a stranger. This was about something he had been carrying for long, something he never allowed anybody to see. And whatever that thing was, the tiny cardigan had pulled it out into the open.
After Babatunde drove out of the park that day, the rest of us stood there wondering what was chasing him inside his own heart. The sun was already sliding down, painting everything with that orange color that makes Lagos look both beautiful and tired. I could not sit still. Something kept telling me to follow him because the way he left the park did not look like someone just returning lost property. It looked like someone fighting for breath. I entered my taxi and drove towards the direction he took. Other drivers continued their walk, but I could not. I kept thinking of that woman, the tired look on her face, the way she held that nylon bag as if the whole world was inside it. I also kept thinking of how Babatunde cried over a baby cloth that was not his. It all felt tied together in a way I did not yet understand. Traffic held me for a few minutes, so I leaned out of my window asking people if they saw a blue Corolla passing fast. Some pointed left, some pointed right, but I trusted my own mind and followed the road that led to the last place the woman had stopped earlier that day. When I got there, Babatunde's car was parked at the side of the road. The door was open. He was not inside. My heart jumped. I parked quickly and came down. I saw him talking to a security guard at an office gate. His shoulders were shaking, not from crying this time, but from fear. Fear that he might not find the woman. Fear that she might already be breaking apart somewhere alone. The security guard pointed down the road. Babatunde thanked him and started walking fast, almost running. I followed him without saying anything. That was when he finally spoke and his voice was low and tired. He said the woman was asking people if anyone saw a small white baby cardigan. He said she was crying when she asked. He said she kept telling people she could not survive if he was lost. Hearing that made something inside my chest twist like rope. We walked faster. The street was busy, full of people buying food, talking, rushing home. But in the middle of all that noise, we saw her. She was sitting on a pavement beside a closed shop, hugging her knees, crying quietly. The cardigan was not with her. The nylon bag lay flat beside her feet. Her shoulders were shaking. Babatunde stopped walking. He stood there like his legs forgot how to move. His breath became heavy. I looked at him and saw a kind of pain that you only see in someone who has lost something they can never get back. I did not know his full story yet, but I knew this moment was pulling it out of him like a needle pulling thread. Then he took a slow step forward, then another, holding the cardigan in both hands like it was a newborn itself. The woman lifted her head and saw him. Her eyes widened. She stood up slowly, her hands trembling. Babatunde raised the cardigan gently towards her. That moment felt like the whole street stopped moving. No cars, no voices, no sound. Just two people standing in front of each other, both holding wounds the world could not see from the outside. And when she reached for the cardigan, something deep and old broke open inside Babatunde. I saw it in his eyes. I saw it in the way his lips trembled. I saw it in the way he could not breathe properly. The story was no longer only about the woman's loss, it was about his too. And whatever he had been hiding for years was about to come out whether he wanted it or not. When the woman touched the cardigan, she did not even hold it at first. She just placed her fingers on it like she was touching something holy. Then she pressed it to her chest and her knees almost gave way. She started crying again, but this time the tears came with shaking breaths, the type that comes from deep inside the body. Babatunde stood in front of her, frozen, like he did not know what to do with his own hands or his own heart. After a few seconds, she looked at him. Her eyes were red and wet. She kept saying thank you, with her voice breaking every time. But it was not only thanks she was saying, she was also saying something like, "You do not understand what you saved." She kept repeating that she could not sleep if she lost that cardigan. She said it held the last memory of her baby. Babatunde's face changed. For years, that man carried a face like a locked door, but in that moment, it opened. His chin shook. His eyes filled again. He tried to talk, but his words kept dying in his throat. I moved back a little to give them space, but I kept watching because something important was happening right in front of me, something bigger than both of them. He finally managed to speak. He told her that she was not the only one who knew how it felt to lose a child. He spoke slowly, like each word was heavy. He said many years ago he too bought baby clothes and dreamed of carrying a daughter. He said he waited outside the delivery room, smiling for the first time in a long while. He said he believed his life was about to become sweet again. Then, he said the doctor came out with eyes that refused to meet his own. And that was when his smile died forever. The woman covered her mouth with both hands. She stepped closer. She did not talk. She just listened because she understood that he was letting out something he had buried for so long. He told her that the baby did not survive. He told her his wife broke under the pain and left. He said he felt like the whole world ended that day. And he said that from that day forward, he refused to feel anything again because pain was too sharp, too strong, too heavy. He said the cardigan brought everything back. He said seeing her pain reminded him of his own. He said he could not allow her to lose what remained of her child because he knew what it meant to lose the last thing connecting you to someone who never even learned how to cry. By the time he finished talking, the woman was crying again, but this time she was not alone. Babatunde's tears were flowing freely. They looked like two people standing inside the same storm. People passing on the street slowed down when they saw them. Some tried to mind their business, but you could see the way they looked back because there is something about two strangers sharing pain that makes even those walking by feel something in their chest. The woman stepped forward and leaned into him, not in a romantic way, not in a begging way, but in a way that said she understood him without needing any more words. He put one hand on her back, the same hand that used to point angrily at passengers. Now it was gentle. I stood there watching the man we all feared become someone new, someone softer, someone real. And in that moment, I knew that the day the cardigan entered his taxi was not an accident. It came to pull his heart back to life. When they finally pulled apart, the woman wiped her face and held the cardigan tightly. She said she wanted to go home. Babatunde nodded and opened the car door for her like she was carrying something fragile. She entered, holding the cardigan close. As they drove away slowly, with the evening breeze blowing through the half-open window, I knew the man who left the park earlier that day was not the same man driving back. Something inside him had changed forever.
By the time Babatunde returned to the park that evening, the sky was already dim and the street lights were waking up one by one. I was sitting on the bonnet of my taxi waiting for him because I know whatever happened after he left would finish the story that cardigan started. When his blue Corona rolled in, the whole park turned to look. Drivers that normally minded their business stood tall. Even the Agberos pretended they were not watching, but their eyes were following him. He parked slowly, like someone who had been walking through memory and needed time to come back to the present. The woman was not with him anymore. She had gone home after he drove her to her street, but the way she stepped out of his car told me she left with peace she did not have when the day began. When he came out of the taxi, he looked different. His face was softer, like the anger had melted out of it. He walked to the bench near the shed and sat down. Nobody rushed him. Nobody asked him anything. We all waited, because for the first time, Babatunde looked like someone ready to talk. After a while, he shook his head slowly. He said he did not know how he survived those years with his heart closed like a locked shop. He said that the woman reminded him that pain does not go away just because you hide it. He said he had spent too long pretending he was fine, pushing people away, avoiding laughter, avoiding joy, avoiding anything that could touch the wound he carried inside. He told me that when he gave her the cardigan, something inside him loosened. He said it felt like a part of his daughter, the part he had been afraid to face, finally returned to him. Not in body, not in life, but in understanding. The woman's pain showed him that he was not the only one in the world carrying a broken heart, and helping her made him feel like maybe he still had something to give to the world. The other drivers joined us, listening. Nobody interrupted him. Some nodded quietly, some looked at the ground. Pain has a way of making everybody remember their own stories. Then he said something that surprised every single person there. He said he was sorry. He said he had been angry at the world for too long and that he had no right to pour that anger on people who did nothing to him. He said he would try to be better. Not perfect, not suddenly cheerful, but better. He said he wanted to live like someone who had learned something, not like someone running from everything. The whole park fell quiet. This was not the kind of thing you clap for. It was the kind of thing that sits inside your chest and makes you think. From that day, Babatunde changed. The change did not come like a loud festival. It came quietly, like morning breeze. He began greeting people. He laughed sometimes, small, soft laughs that surprised even him. When children entered his taxi, he spoke to them gently. When passengers tried to hold small talk with him, he did not shut the door in their faces with silence anymore. He even started buying food from the women selling rice and beans at the corner. Those women used to say he behaved like food offended him. Now he thanked them and sometimes even asked about their children. One morning he arrived at the park earlier than usual. He wiped his car always, but this time there was no anger in the movement. He cleaned the back seat with care, like he wanted to honor the place where the cardigan once sat. Whenever I looked at him, I remembered the man who knelt and cried in the middle of the park, holding a tiny baby cloth. I remember how that moment cracked open a story we never knew he had. And I remembered how helping a stranger helped him finally help himself. The day the taxi driver cried was the day the whole park learned that even the hardest people are carrying something. And sometimes, the smallest thing, like a forgotten cardigan, can open a door that has been locked for years. And from that day, Babatunde was no longer the landlord of bad mood. He became something else, something better, something human. And every time I tell this story, I remember the way his face looked when he handed that cardigan back to the woman. That moment taught me something I will never forget. Healing can enter a person quietly, and when it does, everything changes.